You're listening to Sci-Fi Fest, where Soph meets sci-fi, film, TV, game and book reviews from the weird and the magnificent world of science fiction and fantasy. Hi everyone, I hope you had a really great Halloween, hope you had a great week, hope you had a great day. For me, it's a quite blustery, rainy kind of Halloween, so it's really nice to be inside and do some fun things, play some games, watch some movies, which is exactly what I've been doing the last couple days. For today's episode, I wanted to tell you about 4 games that I played for Halloween, and also I'll be doing a review for the film The Invisible Man. On the weekend I went to play some games with my friends Mark and Hope and my partner Chris. Mark and Hope, who I think I've mentioned before, are really, really good at being games dealers. They always bring great games to the table, and they're also excellent hosts, so it's always really fun to play with them. They introduced 2 board games to me. The first one is called Fit to Print. It's really, really cute, very easy to pick up. In that game you play an editor, and you have a tiny, tiny little cardboard desk, which is really, really cute. You have a newspaper, which is made up of lots of different squares. The aim of the game is to get as many points as possible, and there are a few different ways that you can do that. So the first phase of the game is that you have all these tiles, and they're all face down, and you're meant to, one-handed, pick a bunch of tiles and put them onto your tiny little desk. And while you're doing that, you're kind of estimating how many you might need. You really don't know if they're going to fit, or if they're the right kind of tiles that you need. And the next phase is where you actually put it onto the newspaper. There are standard rules that you follow, and then there's one rule that you get to follow as well that's like special rules. And the special rules are kind of random. You get this little tile, and there are lots of different ones, and it could affect whether you get certain points, or, you know, it's a way to get more points or something like that. So you have to be very strategic about which one's going to go where onto this newspaper. And you also have to make sure that your newspaper is a good balance. You want to have equal amounts of happy stories and equal amounts of sad stories. All of these things add up to points in the end. I really, really like this game. It's very simple to play. It reminds me a little bit of games like Patchwork, where you have to fit everything in, but I think the added chaos of having to pick everything up and doing everything, making snap decisions, makes it really, really hard for you to know if you're putting too much or too little onto your little table. Really, really chaotic, but so much fun. The second game that I was introduced to was one called Cheese Thief, which is really, really simple. The game includes cups, 6-sided dice, some cards, and a little bit of sponge that looks a bit like cheese. The aim of the game is that you get given some cards randomly. One of them will show a graphic of a mouse with some cheese, and the rest are just generic mice which look like they're kind of snoozing. They're given out to people randomly, and then the second element is that you have this dice in a cup. You shake the cup with the dice in it, and it will tell you a number between 1 and 6, and that tells you the time that you're supposedly meant to wake up. Then everyone closes their eyes. The person leading the game will count 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock very slowly. The idea is that you close your eyes, and then when your number is called, you open them up, and if you are the cheese thief, you are obligated to take the cheese. You might be lucky and no one else is waking up at the same time as you, or you might be unlucky and someone is waking up and you have to make a call if they are going to be your accomplice or not, and there is an opportunity a little later to determine who that might be. And then there's a phase of the game where everyone gets to open their eyes and you have a discussion about who this person might be, who the cheese thief is. And it's just really fun. It's a really good icebreaker. It's a really simple game. It's easy to set up. You could actually play this game without having the pack, like if you had some dice, some cups. Obviously I don't want to condone creating this game yourself and taking money out of the hands of the people who actually designed this. But it is a really good game, I think, that could be easily scaled up to more than 6 players. What I like about it especially is it's very similar to games like, you know, Secret Palpatine or games of that type, but they don't feel as icky. Like there's another game called Secret, I won't say what the name is, but if you know, you know. And it always feels really icky telling people what the title is because it is pretty problematic, whereas this game, it's just goofy and there's no weird political undertones to it. I had a lot of fun playing it. For the final round when we were playing, I was actually the cheese thief. I just remember that the table that we were playing on, it has these little drawers that are easy to touch and they make a sound, so I was trying to be very cognizant of that. and stop myself from touching them when I was reaching over to get the cheese when it was my turn to open my eyes, but at the same time trying to scan from right to left to see who might be awake. And I didn't think I would see anyone, but then when I get to my partner, who is right next to me on the left, his eyes are wide open and staring at me, and it was really, really funny, but I had to like keep a straight face. I think I kept my cool there, thankfully. But what we found is that we really didn't have to do much work by that point because people were so riled up from the previous rounds that we had played. My partner tried to do his best to keep me off the radar because that's kind of what you have to do if you're the accomplice. But he didn't have to do anything at all. We just kind of sat back and let our friends argue. Everyone was pointing fingers at everyone else. They were like, oh, your face is funny, you're being really suspicious, you know. It's just really, really fun. So those are two really good board games that I recommend that you play. You can find them wherever you get your board games. I also played 2 video games on the weekend. I wanted to keep it kind of horror themed because it is Halloween. So I played Crime Scene Cleaner. There's only a demo at the moment, but it's on Steam if you want to check it out. In this game, you play, surprise, surprise, a crime scene cleaner. It's kind of strange though. You get a phone call in the video that opens the game, and someone has clearly just straight up unalived someone, and they're like, oh, can you clean this up for me? And the cleaner is like, oh, well, it's my job. So he goes. So you arrive on the scene. I think it's the kind of game, if you like to 100% things, if you like being meticulous at your job, then this is the kind of game for you. I guess there is something cathartic about it because you have to make sure everything is cleaned up. You have to make sure everything that might be evidence is put into the van. There are certain sounds that happen when you put furniture into the right place, like a clicking sound. So in a way it's very cathartic, but also, I don't know, it's not really my kind of game. But if that sounds like something interesting to you, then definitely check out the demo. It's on Steam at the moment. I'm sure the full game will come out very soon. The last game that I played on the weekend is called Killer Frequency. It's kind of like a point and click, but a much more stripped down version of that. You play a DJ in a small town. You get a call from the local policeman who has thwarted a serial killer whose calling card is this whistle. The policeman then diverts all of the 911 calls through to the radio show, and you kind of have to make all the decisions. And as these calls come through, you kind of help the callers get away from this serial killer. It's a really interesting idea. One of the cool features of it is that you are actually a DJ, so there's a limited amount of LPs on the left that you can put into the LP player, and then there's some cassettes you can put into the cassette player to play these very quirky adverts for the radio station. But also you're just trying to find different clues, give people tips about how they can get away. It's just a really fun idea. I think if you've ever had a dream to be a DJ on a radio station, and if you like tropey horror films, then this is probably a really good game for you. So yeah, check those out. Really, really fun games. From goofy to spooky. I also wanted to talk to you about the film that I watched for Halloween. The film is called The Invisible Man, and I guess before I talk about it, I should give you some content notes about it. There are themes of domestic abuse in it. I want to be really honest about that. So if you do end up watching it on the back of me talking about it, that you know that going into it. The film stars Elizabeth Moss and Oliver Jackson Cohen, and quickly the premise of the film, at the beginning of the film, you see Cecilia waking up. It's early in the morning. She's gathering her things. She's obviously planned this for a long time, and she has to disarm the security in this place. It's kind of a weird fortress that she's living in. Weird, empty, modern sort of fortress made of cement. Briefly, you see her go into what looks like, I don't know, like a science lab, very high-tech kind of place. It's clear that either she or her partner, who she was trying to leave, has something to do with science, but kind of like a passing reference because she's passing through. She manages to get through the woods and get to her sister, and she's telling her sister to drive, and then you see her partner or ex-partner run through the woods and smash the window to try to get at her, and it's really scary and jarring, and then they manage to get away. What follows is Cecilia telling her close family and friends about this particular person, her partner, being incredibly abusive. She struggles really to leave the house because she's scared that he might find her. I think as she starts to relax, you start seeing some weird things happening. She starts to feel very uneasy, and you see her looking at a blank space in the room, feeling like someone's watching her, and this happens multiple times early in the film. She's adamant that her ex-partner is doing this, that he somehow managed to be invisible. And to the outside eye, I guess, that you'd probably think that is not possible. But because you are watching this as well through her eyes, and you're seeing the full picture of things, you can see things as they happen. You don't see him at first, like you see the heat on her cooking go up, and then more obvious things later. The bedding clearly being pulled off by someone standing on the bedding as she's trying to pull it away, and she can't really explain those things, but she knows that he has something to do with it. People keep telling her that she's crazy, that can't be real. And then the guy uses this ability to try to isolate her from everyone that she knows and loves. He does something pretty horrible that forces her to go into a mental hospital, and she manages to, I guess, pull him out of the darkness in a way. She threatens to unalive herself, and then he sort of intervenes, and in doing so he allows himself almost to be seen by her. And then she's able to pierce his suit, and then a sort of like chase scene ensues, and I won't talk about the ending. I thought this was such a great film. The way that the director and Elizabeth approached the film was very, very sensitive to the actual topic. They clearly approached this topic with a lot of care. Nothing about the way they handled this made Cecilia, the main character, seem like she was crazy, because I think it would be easy to, play it off like a lot of horror tropes where someone is like, I've seen it, I definitely did. If it were a goofier film with goofier subject matter, you might play some funny music or, use music in a different way. But I think what they did instead, and I think what brought more terror, was that the moments when she is just looking at a void, I think there's something there, but she can't really explain it. They have pretty much no sound at all, and that's what's more jarring. I really, really like that about films when they do that, when they use sound in that kind of unusual way, and they don't fall to the kind of classic horror tropes of doing crescendos of sound or trying to use sound to scare you by being suddenly very loud. I think that would be too easy, and it would be pretty crass considering the subject matter. They just let the story kind of speak for itself. I think that's very admirable, and it also just makes the film that much more creepy and scary. The other thing I love is the conviction of Cecilia's character. You see her look into these sort of voids, these dead spaces of air, and she is convinced that there is something there. A lot of science fiction horror films have this trope where someone will say, I saw it, I know I did, and then someone else will say, no, you didn't, there was nothing there. I really like instead that we're encouraged as the viewer to believe Cecilia's character because she is convinced, and we also see it happen ourselves. There's no denying that this is happening. I think that the fact that this is supposed to be a science fiction film is kind of secondary really to the drama and the horror of the film. At its heart, it just is a film about a guy who is controlling and abusive, and about a woman's journey to try to free herself from his clutches. She fights for her family, her friends, in a way so much more than maybe she was able to do for herself. She really tries to protect them. The other thing I like about the film is that in previous versions of The Invisible Man, I think it was the 90s or something, the focus was fully on the guy in the film, on his journey as a scientist. But in this film, it really is all about Cecilia, not the scientist. She is affected by the scientist, and it's clear that he has abused his power. I think that idea really taps into something quite scary about technology in the first place. This idea that technology could be used against people. as, you know, technology increasingly rapidly develops, you see in horror films, in science fiction films, this idea of, you know, what could go wrong if someone were to abuse this technology, which I think adds to the fear factor. So in conclusion, great film. I love this take on the Invisible Man idea. Well acted and just chef's kiss, hella spooky. So that's it for this episode. Check out the videos coming out in the coming week about the games that I mentioned earlier, and have a good one. Bye!